always, welcome to my home. Today is another Talk of the Crown weekly live stream chat. This is your opportunity to ask me, speak to me, talk to me, tell me anything that you want to. Let me just first of all adjust the camera and make sure that we are all in focus and that we're level. I'm hoping the audio is okay, so please let me know if you can hear me fine. Hello to everybody. I'm not going to say hello individually to everyone, but I welcome your questions and I welcome your comments and your thoughts on all the royal happenings that have been going on. As always, welcome back to the channel. I can see Kathy already has come in with a comment, which I'll read in a second. Just want to talk about the jewelry first of all. So I think there we go, my Diana sapphire brooch. Actually, no, this is my Queen Victoria sapphire and diamond brooch turned around. So I've worn it today in a less conventional way than what I normally do. I normally wear this as a brooch, but today I've opted to wear it on the higher strand of my pearl choker, which I've coupled with another kind of pearl brooch. We have a replica Queen Victoria's bow brooch, and of course we have the Greville or honeycomb tiara going on today. Right, I can see people dropping in. Let me just put it on live chat so I can see exactly what's going on. Kathy says the judge has Harry's visa documents. I made a video on that, which is it's members only at the moment, but it's coming out tomorrow. The judge has Harry's visa documents and is reviewing them. This judge works quickly, so I predict we will have some information about this situation very soon, maybe as soon as next week. It's all coming to a head. It's all coming to a crescendo, my loves. And it's about time too, because this has been allowed to rumble on for far too long. Harry, stupid. I talk about this in much more detail in my upcoming video. Harry was stupid. He doesn't know which way to turn. He drops himself in it. He really, really does. He cuts off his nose to spite his face to try and prove one point or try and, I don't know, shock people. He then shoots himself in the foot. He doesn't think several steps ahead. He wouldn't make a very good chess player. He's more checkers than chess. No, he's more Connect Four than chess. You've got to think several moves ahead. And Harry is not very good at doing that. He did not think, oh, well, if I confess to or own up to having done drugs, that wouldn't come and bite him in the backside with regards to his visa application. He can't see any further than the end of his own nose, in my view. But I do talk about that more in my upcoming video. But I do hope we get a conclusion to that very, very quickly. I hope the judge just puts an end to it and says, look, we need to see those documents. We need to see exactly what he put, and then it can all come to light and all can be aired. And then what will be, will be. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not Markle's to see. Que sera, sera. Hello to people just joining. Waiting for Bo and Rory. Rory, my cat, is just in front of the camera in the window, so you can't see him right now. Sounds good, so thank you. It looks like the audio is working well, because the last time I did a live chat and I wore the microphone and pearls, it all jangled, and people told me after the event that it was making a big noise. So today what I've done is clipped them together. So hopefully practical and fashionable at the same time. Yes, greetings to everyone. Twiller says, love the pearls. Well, thank you. I am in my pearl era at the moment, most definitely. Did I borrow Queen Elizabeth II's pearls? Well, I think Princess Anne got quite a few of Queen Elizabeth's pearls. We have seen her at recent events with a couple of strands of what we suspect to be the late Queen Elizabeth's pearls. But no, if anybody, I'm still doing the jewellery amnesty. Yes, which I think is quite practical. So if you do have any pearls, real ones, of course, or real diamonds, or sapphires, or emeralds, I don't do rubies. I definitely do not. I don't do rubies. I wouldn't thank you for rubies. So don't send me rubies. But anything else, aquamarines, diamonds, pearls, whatever it might be, um, send them my way, and I'll wear them in videos. Anyway, uh, yes, you can never have too many diamonds. I agree. I'm in my sort of Queen Mary, or you can see a little bit of Rory's ear now. Did you see his face and a few whiskers? Um, greetings from Rory. In fact, I think does he want to sit in the window? Yes. The birds have been driving him absolutely wild today. In fact, he's been having a standoff with a blackbird on the fence. Ah, not quite royal says Harry is a mess, and you love the velvet. He is a mess. He cuts off his nose all the time to spite his face. He wraps himself up in a web of lies, um, of which he calls his truth bombs. But really, what he's doing is truth bombing himself, which is just completely silly. Marcia says the Harkles like to play checkers. The British royal family play chess. Absolutely. They are lowbrow, the Harkles, and the royal family are most definitely highbrow. Now, I do think, with regards to if we're likening sort of navigating royal life to playing games of chess and checkers, I do think there are lessons to be learned from all around, to be quite honest. The Harkles like to truth bomb themselves, and I do think the royal family themselves need to learn a little bit more about how to navigate the social media era that we are now in, because it is different. The royal landscape has completely changed. When I started putting myself in front of the camera talking about the royals, I was the original. 9 years ago now. Next year will be my 10th anniversary on YouTube, which will be quite special. Um, the royal landscape was completely different. It was all about the engagements. It was all about the work. It was all about following what they were up to, what they were doing. I remember being sat in my kitchen talking about what they were up to. The most gossip that you'd get, the most scandal at that time, was whether or not Prince Andrew would remarry Sarah, whether Eugenie and Beatrice would become working royals, which we're still talking about today. There wasn't a lot of scandal. Everything was very positive, everything was very upbeat. And I remember when Harry and Meghan came on the scene, people were very accepting of Harry and Meghan at the time. There was nothing really that was said at that moment negative about Harry and Meghan. But Harry and Meghan like to create their own drama, they like to create their own destiny. And of course, they changed the whole narrative themselves. They have created the negative about themselves. And now they are in their bed, they are going to have to lie in it. But we've also had the rise of social media in that time. And of course, under Queen Elizabeth II, the royal family did embrace, they joined Twitter, they joined Instagram, all of that kind of thing. But I do think that they fall short when it comes to navigating the social media and the immediacy of the media. A photo can come out and it can blow up and be all over Twitter or X, whatever it's called these days. And they do need to learn how to play that game a little bit better, but they are playing it way better than Harry and Meghan. Twilla says, what's going to happen to the prince when he gets kicked out of the US? Um, well, the only place he can go is back home. I mean, obviously he could try and go to other countries. Rory wants to come down. He could try and go to other countries if he wanted to. But he'd have to go through their. So I'm just wrapping my wire around my cat. Um, he'd have to go through their visa applications. Um, so the most likely scenario would be that he'd want to come home back to the UK. The only problem is with that, he's burnt so many bridges. The British public don't want him back. So he may be in a situation where he comes back if that happened, but he is most definitely not welcome. And we've heard recently that Meghan is frightened, or she's certainly not looking forward to perhaps coming back and being booed. And that would not suit her narrative. She wants to be seen as the person that's adored and a delight to be around in Hollywood circles. Well, that is not going to be the case if she turns up for anything in the UK and gets booed. That is absolutely not going to fit her narrative. So she will stay away as much as she possibly can, which I'm thankful for. I mean, thank goodness. The prospect of Meghan coming back is quite slim. But I don't think Harry would come back without Meghan. So could we be in a situation where if Harry is kicked out of the US, it actually is the catalyst that breaks up, that splits up Harry and Meghan's marriage? I don't think she'd want to come back, and she would most definitely cling on to those children and stay in the US. So Harry could be coming back to the UK, tail between legs, to a very ununderstanding and a very unaccepting British public because we have been wronged. Cinder says, "You look fabulous today." Thank you so much. Twiller says, "Oh, but I love rubies." I don't. I don't. They're the one jewel I don't like. I don't know what it is, but I don't like rubies. Not quite right. You can stick your rubies where the sun don't shine. Not quite royal says, where would they go if they go? Oh, I've read that one. How do you feel about peridot, your August birthstone? Well, yes, August is my birth month. Peridot is green. I like emeralds, so peridot is a much cheaper version of an emerald. I hate to say, but yes, peridot is fine. And one of the gemstones that I wanted to add to my everyday jewelry collection was actually peridot. I wanted to get a lot more pieces for my own collection. So watch this space. There should be some peridot pieces coming very soon. I pronounce it peridot, the French way. I don't think many people say peridot. JM says, what do you think of Lady Colin Campbell's book or interviews on Harry and Meghan? Well, I think this is someone, a celebrity, Lady C, who does know how to navigate social media. When I was just talking about the royal family and Harry and Meghan, in a way, need to learn how to navigate social media in this digital age, this social media age, I think Lady Colin Campbell has got it spot on. There are lots of brands like proper big business brands that don't embrace influencers. And the one thing that you can most definitely be sure of if you are trying to advertise something is that you can speak to your audience directly by speaking to other influencers, by other people, in Lady Colin Campbell's case, that talk about the royal family. So I think it was a very good move on her part to speak to people that have the audience that she wants to tap into. It's very savvy, it's very clever, and it's nothing that I would not expect from Lady C. And I think my prediction is that a lot more people will follow suit. There are lots of people that write royal books, and they have been previously incredibly stuffy. When it comes to promotion, they'll only talk to other journalists because it's mostly journalists writing books about the royals. They'll only talk to other journalists. Now, I think things will change, and I think anyone who has a book out will be wanting to talk to social media influencers, which is basically what anyone who talks about the royal family is, whether they like that label or not. I don't particularly like that label, but it is something that I think we are. Cinder says, I love your weekly vlogs too. Thank you. For those people who don't know, who only have come to me from this channel, I do have another channel that I've had for many years now, which is a vlog channel about my daily life. So if you, holidays and home life and all the rest of it. So if you want to check that out, it's Elliot and Matt on YouTube. type it in, will come up. Will I be reading Lady C's book? It is on order, but hasn't come yet. But I do have the original copy. Obviously, this is an updated version, so I don't have the updated version yet, but I do have the original. Twiller says, to me, Lady Colin Campbell can be a bit shrill at times. She loses it and glasses break. Well, I'm not going to comment on anyone for being shrill. Pot, kettle, and black might spring to mind. Snappy says, looking dapper today. Well, thank you. And Schnook, I can't pronounce your name, Schnuckle 66666 says, if Harry will be kicked out of the US, do you think Meghan will, well, I've just spoke about this. No, I think she would be incredibly reluctant because she wouldn't be welcome. And that goes against her brand image, doesn't it? American Riviera Orchard. Yes, goes completely against that, doesn't it? Kate says, I remember you really struggled with the switch in royal conversations after Harry and Meghan left. Things became, yes. When I first, as I've just said, when I first started doing, putting myself on YouTube talking about the royals, it was a very, it was a nice space to be in. There wasn't any nastiness, there wasn't any scandal at that point. You know, gone were the Diana and Charles years, the wars of the Waleses. You know, there was just, the most you had was a little bit of a rumbling about, you know, should Camilla be queen and all the rest of it. But that was about it. So the landscape did completely change. And let's put it this way. Over recent years, my eyes have most definitely been opened. And that leads on to one thing. I've got a few things that I want to unbox or show you. And one of them is, I have had these for many years, and I think I used to use them a couple of times in my previous videos years ago. And I went back to my archives and dragged them out. Can you tell what they are? And can you tell what I'm going to use them for in upcoming videos? These are my opera glasses. And these are going to be my Meghan Markle I See You BS glasses. So whenever Meghan does anything, or Harry, that we can see straight through them, these are coming out. I see you, Meghan. And they've even got a little laser. Look, they've got a little laser that I can put on. I can zap her. So Meghan, we see you. We most definitely do. So I'm going to put those over there. So if Meghan does anything while we're on the live chat, I'll be able to pull them out. They are Meghan's BS goggles, basically. Also, I found some fans. So I think I overworked my fans over previous years. And I didn't realize I'd got some spares. So let's have a look. I think what I want to do is to use the red fan for anything detestable. So whenever Meghan does anything detestable, not only will we see her, but we can flap her as well. And we'll have a red fan. I wouldn't mind a bigger fan, actually, for anything negative to Meghan. And if, obviously, anything good happens, if there's any positive news in the royal family, if we have some nice health updates from Catherine, for example, or Charles, or the King, we can flap green, can't we? And I do think that if you join channel memberships, I've uploaded some fan flaps that you can fan flap along with me. So there we go. I'm going to keep those down there in case I need to use them. Now, let's have a look. Steve says, hi. Was watching the Entente Cordiale ceremony at Buckingham Palace the other day. Have to say the Duchess of Edinburgh looked great. Not sure if it's only me, but I thought she looked tired. They have been doing a lot more. Now, I'm not saying that they weren't doing a lot more before. That wasn't a diss in any way. But what has changed is that they are not working, they are working harder, but what they are doing is more important. So with the absence of the King, with the absence of William and Catherine, I know William's been doing a few things, but he is looking after and prioritizing his family, quite right for doing so. So Princess Anne, the Edinburghs, the other working royals are doing more important things. Queen Camilla as well, for example. So I wouldn't say they're working harder, but the things are more important, which of course could have a knock-on effect when it comes to stress, I suppose. So if she's looking tired, I can see 100% why. So the Entente Cordiale is a very long-standing agreement. It's kind of like it is. It's an intention to be nice. It's an intention to be nice. It's an Entente Cordiale. In fact, Harry and Meghan wouldn't go amiss by having the attitude of their own Entente Cordiale, but I don't think they are anywhere near that, to be quite honest. But it was you've got to understand the history between Britain and France. Um, it's been a very varied, checkered history, and there were lots of skirmishes and wars and disagreements and treaty breakdowns over hundreds and hundreds of years. So finally, France and Britain, I think, saw, do you know what? We're better off being civil. We don't have to necessarily understand each other, but it's good to be civil. So the Entente Cordiale, the intention to be civil, if you like, not an exact translation, uh, came about. And then obviously, what's happened is, France and Britain have worked fairly collaboratively over the years, the hundred of years since. And it was the first time that French guards have, sort of paraded outside Buckingham Palace. It was a big occasion, an important occasion that the king would have otherwise attended if he hadn't been ill. So to send the Edinburghs was a really big coup for the Edinburghs. It was a very important space for them to be in. Obviously, if William and Catherine, weren't going through what they were going through, it would have been William and Catherine that probably would have attended. Um, so yes, it was very special. All of that is up on YouTube. I don't need to put any footage up. You can find the entire sort of broadcast of the Entente Cordiale ceremony that kind of went on. But yes, I agree. The Edinburghs did a fantastic job with it. All right, I'm just going up my all of my comments skipped. So let me just go up and find where I got to. There we go. Right, not quite royal, says Meghan has probably spoken so ill of the royal family to the children. Well, we don't know that. But yes, I can imagine children listen to conversations, don't they? So I am sure that Archie and Lilibet, someone said the other day, why aren't you calling her Lily? Everyone does. No, her name is Lilibet, and we must not forget that her name is Lilibet, which is the full Queen Elizabeth II's nickname, if you like, or pet family name. Um, and that is what they called her without getting express permission for doing so. Well, they say that there was permission, but there wasn't. Basically, they'd already had the website and the domain names bought and purchased before they asked permission of the Queen. It doesn't sound like asking permission to me. It sounds more like telling and coercing. And the one thing you don't do is tell or coerce a reigning monarch into doing something that, puts them in a very difficult position. So once again, Meghan, we see you. We see exactly what you're up to. So by calling Lilibet Lily, we are diminishing the act of theft and vandalism of that name that Harry and Meghan did at that time. So I would urge everyone to call her Lilibet, not Lily. Do I think that royals will attend the Invictus service, maybe the Edinburghs or Anne? At the moment, see, it is a big event. It's being held in St Paul's. So I'm not going to discount any of the royals turning up. And of course, you have to think bigger picture. The bigger picture here is it is for British ex-servicemen and women. So that is the most important thing. So there is the potential that other royals could turn up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are endorsing Harry and Meghan. It does certainly wouldn't give way to a thawing of relations. It would just show that they are supporting British ex-servicemen and women, if that makes sense. Twiller says, I think it would be a good idea if more royals get on board with the Invictus Games. Again, the Invictus Games is Harry's baby, although they could turn up for events such as what's happening at St. Paul's. I don't think they're going to get heavily involved in other royals' charities, organisations, and also it's not a very effective or good usage of time. Ruth says, let's face it, Harry is more rock, paper, scissors. Well, yes. He's well, he's definitely the rock being enveloped by Meghan as the paper. Let's put it that way. Steve says, I don't think any royals will attend the Invictus service. Yes, I agree. They will probably have their own engagements, but we'll see. We will see. Dr. Leesit says, love the BS glasses. Thank you. We see you, Meghan. We see you. Twilla says, aha, good one. Very funny. I will zap her with my laser. Not quite royal says, excellent talk of the crown props. Thank you so much for the comments as well about my outfit. Not quite royal says, let me just go back up again because I've lost the comments. I saw something yesterday from Talk TV, I believe, about how they expect William as the future head of the church to forgive Harry. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever. Forgiveness, just because you're the head of the church, and of course, Christianity, preaches about forgiveness, it does not mean that he has to forgive Harry. There is no prerequisite or there is no expectation of the church for him to do that. And of course, for someone to forgive somebody of their sins or absolve them of their sins, there would have to be repentance from the person that is requiring the forgiveness. And that, I think, is not very forthcoming. Twiller says, I'd love to see you get an old English fan with lace and jewels. I would too. Other than a Japanese kind, I hope you can find those. There are some bigger fans, but I thought these would do for now, my loves. But I will keep a lookout. Thank you to Lucia, who says, I look good tonight. Thank you. Marcia says, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh looked better than at previous appearances in the past. He looked like he dropped some weight. I chalk it up to him mourning his parents' death. They all look good. The only person that I think is actually not looking particularly good is Harry at the moment. And I say this because he's always trying to cover up his hair loss. Now, I have no issue with hair loss. As a man, it happens. But he has it all photoshopped in. And I know people might say, oh, well, it's a bit rich talking about Photoshop with what's recently gone on within the royal family. But it shows, why is he doing that? It's just really weird, especially when in Spare Me, he made great pains about saying how William doesn't look like his mother anymore and that he's balding and all the rest of it, and then tries to cover up his own hair loss. It's just, Harry, we see you, and it doesn't make sense. It's completely ridiculous. It really is. Twiller says, I always wish for the brothers to make up, get united, and make a stronger family. I don't see much point in in sort of reconvening with family, in reconciling is the word I'm looking for, if there is not an actual repentance. Going back to what I said previously, Harry and Meghan would have to really understand what they had done wrong, the pain that they had caused, and actually genuinely convince William and Charles and the rest of the royal family that they were sorry. And I don't think that is going to happen because they are not sorry. They do not want forgiveness. They do not want to admit that they were wrong. Remember, with the Harkles, it's everybody else's fault other than their own. So I don't think that would ever happen whilst they are in that frame of mind. And even if they did get to that point, and the royal family were to kind of, say, let bygones be bygones, they've got to make up to the public as well. And we are a lot more difficult, I think, to win over than other family members who, you have an affinity with your family, whether they do good or bad. Um, so Harry and Meghan, if they ever did want back, which I don't think they do, well, certainly Meghan doesn't, they have a mountain to climb. I mean, they have several Everests to climb. Let's put it that way. Let's have a look. Not quite royal says naming her Lilibet without asking for permission of the Queen was a hijacking of a treasured memory, completely disgusting. Which is why we should now refer to Lilibet as Lilibet and not Lily, because Harry and Meghan are trying to now kind of wind back and diminish it and just calling her Lily. No, they named her Lilibet after the Queen. Who said she didn't get permission? It was all over. It was all over the media at the time. I remember reporting on it quite succinctly. So at the time, what was said? This is from Palace insiders, and we now know from Harry and Meghan's, own sort of doings that Palace insiders do actually mean Palace insiders. They're not always completely 100% accurate, but they said that the Queen was on the back foot. Harry and Meghan had already chosen the name. When people dug into the .coms, for example, Lilibet.com or whatever it is, they'd already been taken out days before the Queen was told. So they hadn't got permission. They'd already ploughed ahead with the domain names. And then the Queen was completely blindsided. When they phoned the Queen, they just kind of said, "Oh, we've named it after you in her honor." And then the Queen felt, I suppose, obliged to agree and say yes. But apparently she was furious behind the scenes. Hijacked it was. Kate T says, agreed. She is Lilibet just as they wanted. Exactly. And let their shame be known every single time it's mentioned. Jennifer says, feels so. Ooh, I've lost the comment again. Jennifer says, feels so bad for the children if Harry must leave. But if you commit a crime, you must suffer the consequences, exactly, of your own actions. Not Quite Royal says, because they had already purchased the domain name. Yes, exactly. Which shows that they'd already had the name set without asking permission. Lucia says, talking to Not Quite Royal, especially because Lilibet was a nickname that was used by the Queen's closest relatives. Exactly, it was very personal. It was personal to Her late Majesty, and they just took it. Something that was, I mean, the Queen didn't have, a lot that was hers, just hers. Everything sort of, held on behalf of the nation, or, she didn't really have much that she could just have as hers, that wasn't sort of, inherited or whatever, that she had to pass down. This was hers, and they took it from her. Another unforgivable act of provocation. James Medford says you can forgive and still have boundaries. Exactly, that was the next part. Boundaries would need to be set. If ever there was any reconciliation, there would have to be boundaries. And it's those boundaries that would build up the trust, but then that would take a lot of time. Yes, Theo, thank you for I'm terrible at mentioning and reminding people to hit the thumbs up. So if you are enjoying this video, then please give it a big old thumbs up. And I will say, after the video is finished, it really will help the video do better and the channel do better and reach more people if you share it on whatever social media platform you're on. And I do think that over the past couple of years, YouTube has been suppressing my videos. I'm not saying anything different now to what other royal commentators are saying and doing. And these videos should be reaching more people, and they're not, which is a YouTube issue, not a me issue. So what we can do is to help the YouTube algorithm, realize that it is a good video. And the one way you can do that is to comment on the video once it's finished going live, hit the thumbs up and share it. And also, if you get a little survey, give it a positive rating as well. James Medford says William's behaviour is like his late mother. Harry's is like a gutter snip. Well, I wasn't talking about William's behaviour. I was talking about looks. Harry in Spare sort of, said how William always used to look like his mother, and I think that was another probably bone of contention for Harry, who feels like this sort of spare part, when in fact he wasn't a spare part at all. He probably didn't like the fact that William looked like his mother and was sort of likened to her because of the way he looked. And then he delighted in the fact that William was losing his hair and looking older, as we all do. We all age. We're not going to look the same as what we did when we were 18. I don't look the same at 40 as I did when I was 18. It is what it is. We all age and we all look different. But then to make a mockery of William, which I thought was absolutely disgusting, to do that, and then try and cover up your own bald head is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Not Quite Royal says, I don't think William and Catherine would ever allow Meghan Markle around their children now. She is like, remember in Snow White, the evil queen that turns herself into the hag, and she goes around with the poisoned apple to try and trick Snow White into biting it. That's Meghan. She is the evil queen in hag form. And she's, it would be like going around like with a poisoned apple or a poisoned chalice. Um, they are better keeping her at arm's length with a barge pole length, to be quite honest. Cecily says Harry is looking haggard at the moment. Well, I don't think the California sun is doing his skin much good. Let's put it that way. I mean, he's of pale complexion. And again, I'm not going to pick on anyone for having a pale complexion. I have a pale complexion myself. I was blonde, very, very blonde as a child. So I'm fair skinned, freckled. I can relate. I can relate to ginger people. So I don't think the Californian sun is doing him much good. I mean, whenever I'm somewhere hot and sunny, I always put very high factor sun cream on, wear a hat, keep out of it as much as I can, or else I burn terribly. Um, there are there are plenty of downsides to having pale, freckly skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair, and all the rest of it. And I don't think that the Californian weather is doing him much good. Let's put it that way. Not Quite Royal says, I don't think. Oh, I've read that one. It was so good, I'd read it again. Twiller. Oh no, I've missed another one. Lucia says, in my opinion, Diana had all the reasons to be sad, disappointed, and angry. Harry and Meghan's situation is much too well. Harry and Meghan's is completely self-inflicted. What can I say? It's completely just self-inflicted. They could have stayed and worked at the relationship with the media, which then would have had a better, knock-on effect on all the other different things. They chose to be abrasive. They chose to just leave. The royal photographer. Now, we're not even talking royal journalists here. So I'm not talking about the people that write about Harry and Meghan at that time. but I'm talking about the people that take the photographs. And there is, you know, a very famous sort of royal beat photographer who turned around and said Harry was always a cheeky chappy, always had, you know, a joke or a laugh to have had with the photographers, even if he didn't like the journalists. You know, he sort of had a bit of a laugh and a joke with the photographers. And as soon as he met Meghan, things turned sour. He ignored the photographers, wouldn't speak to them, wouldn't go to the back of the plane when they were on transport together. And, you know, there was a turning point, and that turning point was Meghan. Twiller said Charles had his forgiveness for being an adulterer. Why not forgive Harry if he asks the Church of England Archbishop? Well, it's personal. The reason is it's personal and it's got nothing to do with the church. Don't forget that to marry Camilla, there had to be a kind of a dispensation for a divorcee to kind of for that marriage to be recognized, if you like. And he got that. He got that at that time. But we're not talking about Harry having to marry anybody else. So there is no need for there to be some kind of, you know, dispensational formal forgiveness from the church. It's just completely not needed and would be highly inappropriate. Kate T says, and when Harry and Meghan threatened to sue the palace, would not back up their story. Exactly. So it all goes to all the pieces are like jigsaw pieces and they all fall together. Not quite royal says, I believe the difference is Charles is king and Harry will never. Yes, the situation is different. To excuse me, I'm clearing my throat of all the harkles. For a situation to be considered a double standard, and there are still Sussex squad members out there going around calling double standards left, right, and centre. For something to be a double standard, the situation has to be exactly the same. And in pretty much all of the situations that are called double standards, the situation is different. Let's have a look. And yes, definitely Charles was not king at the time of his marriage to Camilla. Not quite royal says Meghan is very practiced at the act or art of provocation. She is indeed. She's done it all of her life, manipulated, lied, tried to wrap men around her little finger, used friends, and then when they served no purpose, dropped. I mean, it's very highly narcissistic behavior, isn't it? Hello to everyone who is just joining as well. Lynn says Harry's behaviour seems to show that he is jealous of William. Yes, he's been jealous. All of this spare nonsense, this hang up about being the spare, it's all driven by jealousy. Harry wishes that he was born first, and he wouldn't have any problem with himself being born first and William being the spare. We have to remember that all of these, you know, things that he's brought up where he was, you know, poorly treated. Oh, you know, I only had a basement flat at Kensington Palace in central London, free of charge. Oh, I only had, you know, a leased BMW, whatever it was that cost about £80,000 that gets renewed every couple of years for free. Oh, but I wasn't allowed to buy my own car. No, you could have bought your own car. You chose not to. You could have bought your own house. You chose not to. Oh, well, I only had the smallest room growing up. Well, yes, but I bet that your small room was probably 10 times as big as everyone else's room, regardless of whether William got a bigger room. And in most people's families, the eldest child would get the biggest room. All of this stuff, it's just a complete load of nonsense. JM says Meghan Markle is today's version of keeping up appearances. Oh, she's no Hyacinth. She is definitely no Hyacinth. She is entirely lowbrow. Marcia says I glow in the dark, and lots of people talking about their pale skin and freckles. So yes, we understand the pale-skinned amongst us with freckles and light-colored hair and blue eyes. We know that you know the sun is not our best friend, and it certainly isn't Harry's. Let's put it that way. Elizabeth Jones says if they had stayed and actually done the work, they would be absolute superstars, much higher profile than they will ever be able to achieve on their own. And do not forget, William and Harry went through the same things growing up. I know there was a little bit of an age difference. So William was a little bit more mature going through it, but he still had the same loss. He still experienced the same hurt and, I suppose, feelings of blame towards the press and the paparazzi. The difference, of course, is in the level of support received. Whilst Harry was a working member of the royal family before he met Meghan, although he may have already had those feelings, he may have always felt like the spare. We saw he made a remark about hating life in Britain, which was kind of a bit of a weird slip up. But he did have the support of the public and he had the support of his family, whether he felt he didn't or not. So, although he had all that, I'm not absolving Harry from his wrongdoing in all of this. He definitely has a huge part to play. But his insecurities were being managed because he had that support from, his at least his brother and Catherine when they were known as the royal trio. Meghan comes along, and of course, everything changes. She preys on his insecurities. Meghan, we see what you're doing. She thought that there was a lot more money in the royal family than what there actually is, or rather than that Harry had access to. She didn't like the accountability, and she saw that she wanted out. She thought, well, we can be big stars in the US. We can capitalize on the royal styles and titles. Come with me. I'll show you the way. With William, he had the support in Catherine. So although William may feel the same things about the press and have that same sort of loathing of them, of the intrusion and sort of what happened to his mother, his mental health has been dealt with far, 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 far better than Harry's because of the way that in later adult life Meghan's kind of pulled him and extracted him from his own family. Although it was Harry's choice to move, she couldn't physically pick him up. But it's all about the coercion, the manipulation of someone that actually was quite vulnerable emotionally. And the one thing that Spare does reveal, quite loud and clear, it should be in neon lights, is actually how fragile Harry's mental state actually was. And it makes it even more narcissistic and horrible, just absolutely horrendous of Meghan to prey on someone who was so vulnerable, that had the issues. When Harry was with the royal family, everything was being managed. Um, and although he may have felt that way deep down, he was still succeeding. He had the love of the public. He was doing so well in royal circles. And there's one common denominator in all of these different issues that bring people down, and it's all leads back to the monster of Montecito. And yes, Harry is not the first spare, and definitely will not be the last. And I do hope that Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte look to really positive examples like Princess Anne, like the Edinburghs, in actually how not being the next in line to the throne, not being king or queen, actually allows you a certain amount of freedom that your elder sibling does not have. Also, you have a very fulfilled role ahead of you. Just look at Princess Anne, just look at Edward and Sophie. They have very important royal lives. Harry and Meghan could have had the same, but it wasn't enough. Meghan saw a ceiling to where she could go, and she did not like to be the underdog to Catherine. And that is the crux of the problem. Let's have a look. Daniela says Princess Beatrice and Edo and a love heart face. Yes, they are adorable. Lucia says, talking about, I think, Princess Beatrice, they have jobs, careers, and social circles that are really different from other working royals. Do excuse me. Yes, they do. I forgot my drink today. Elizabeth says, look at Prince Andrew. He'd give his right leg to be back in the fold. He would. He'd give anything. He really, really would. But if you look up until the point where everything went wrong for Prince Andrew, his associations with Jeffrey Epstein that got him into the position he's in now. Before that, he was doing well and he was supporting his mother and he did have a very fulfilled life. Now, I don't think he has that now. I mean, I imagine he is a little bit like a lost soul at the moment. Not really not having the sort of carpet sort of, although it's his own doing, but ripped from under him. His life as he knew it is not anymore. And I imagine that Harry is probably feeling the same way. It's all self inflicted, of course. But I imagine he has such a loss of purpose in his new life, but also that he has to actually work for a living. He can't just, turn up at an event and smile and shake hands or cut a ribbon. He actually has to come up with ideas. He has to actually, run a production company or whatever it is that they've got going on. It's not easy. And I bet he misses the life that he once had. Lucia says, what do you think about the fact that King Charles kind of allowed Sarah Ferguson back in the family? It actually all began under Queen Elizabeth II. The real sticking problem with her being sort of more ingratiated in the private family activities was the Duke of Edinburgh. But even when the Duke of Edinburgh was alive, the Queen, her late Majesty, still invited Sarah to be close. So, for example, at Christmas times, when the royal family were at Sandringham, Sarah would stay at Wood Farm to be close to the girls and Andrew and the family. The Queen would visit Sarah. She's always been quite fond of Sarah. At Balmoral, Sarah would go and stay in one of the cottages on the estate in the summer. Now, she'd keep firmly out of the way of the Duke of Edinburgh, of course. And of course, before the Duke died, we did see the wedding photos of course, Princess Beatrice and Sarah and the Duke were in the same photo. So, that was an occasion where they came back together. But under, and then obviously we had the COVID years where things were a bit up in the air. So now under King Charles, I think he has a really good relationship with Sarah. I think they all do. I think they're all very fond of her bubbly personality. Yes, she makes mistakes, but she is very personable. And when she makes a mistake and she's called up on it, unlike certain people living in Montecito, she is, once she understands what she's done wrong, she apologizes, and you really get the sense of that it is genuine. And this is where, I think Prince Andrew, needed to have taken a big read out of Sarah's book. When he did that disastrous interview, the Emily Maitlis interview, he didn't seem humble. He didn't actually seem like he realized that he'd done something wrong. Regardless or not of whether he did what he was accused of, just that association was inappropriate. And he didn't take any form of responsibility or accountability. Whereas when Sarah has done something wrong and she's called up on it, she takes accountability. And that is almost endearing to the public about Sarah. So, the way that she handles things is entirely different. And I think Charles, knows that actually Sarah is quite good to have in Prince Andrew's life right now. Let's have a look. Lynn says, is it true that Lady Louise, daughter of Edward and Sophie, is going to use Princess in her name? she is entitled to use Princess now if she wanted to. She could just start using it. I think I said this in last week's chat. Under the George V letters patent, um, James, Earl of Wessex, and Lady Louise Windsor were entitled from birth to use HRH, and Prince and Princess Edward and Sophie chose not to adopt that, but it's still theirs. All they've got to do, they haven't even got to inform the palace, although I would advise informing the palace before using. Harry and Meghan did not when they, started using the titles for Lilibet and Archie. But Lady Louise could just start calling herself Princess Louise of Wessex, could start signing a name HRH, and that would be perfectly legal for her and proper and correct for her to do so. The only thing that is preventing her being known as princess or having the HRH style is herself not using it. She's past the age where she can choose for herself. Um, so yes, it's highly possible that she could decide at any point. She could decide in 2 minutes' time to start using it, and she would be entitled to do so. She hasn't got to apply for anything. Kate says Fergie makes mistakes, but she doesn't try to destroy the monarchy. No, she has always been incredibly respectful of the monarchy. Ramona says, do you think Prince William wishes he would not be the next king? I don't think it's a job any of them particularly enjoy. I think Charles was ready for it when it came along. He'd waited so long, but I don't think it's anything that any of them particularly covet. Let's put it that way. Lucia says, I'm going to say a thing that's out of topic. Okay. I think that the fact that James guarded his grandmother's coffin at such a young age was really admirable. Well, it's not off topic. That's perfectly fine. And yes, it was lovely and quite proper and correct for him to do so, if he felt that that was appropriate for himself to go through. Steve says, let Lady Louise finish her education, then see what she wants to do. I mean, there is certainly a call, for James, Earl of Wessex, and Lady Louise to step up at some point because I think they are needed. Let's not forget the royal family is quite depleted at the moment, and it's going to be a long time before George, Charlotte, and Louis come along and become, anywhere near full-time working royals. Lynn says, that's very interesting. Thank you. You are more than welcome. The George V Convention, as it's known, or the George V Letters Patent, lay out the blueprint of the current rules, if you like, for styles and titles within the British royal family. If you are entitled to something from birth, you are entitled to it. And once you reach the legal age where you can choose for yourself, it's yours. Really, Lady Louise is Princess Louise of Edinburgh, I should say. Did I say Wessex earlier? Edinburgh. So she would be Princess Louise of Edinburgh. And of course, James would be Prince James of Edinburgh. So yes, it's theirs, ripe for the taking, I should say. Right, and I think that is going to conclude today's live stream. So I have really, really enjoyed today. I think we've had some really interesting questions and comments. I didn't particularly have anything planned that I wanted to talk about other than the Entente Cordiale. So I'm very, very impressed with all of the viewer questions and comments. It's kept us going for an hour. So please let me know in the comment section what you have enjoyed about today's chat. I don't know, just let me know. Let me know your thoughts and comments because it's always interesting for me to get some feedback and to read how you think the chat has gone. Not Quite Royal says, thanks for such a fun chat. And I can't pronounce your name. I'm going to call you 66666. Can Charles take the Victorian order away from Harry? Anything that's given can be removed, is what I'm going to say to that one. So anyway, thank you so much for attending this chat. Now, I am going to be doing Talk of the Crown is back every single Thursday at 6 p.m. UK British time. So that will be every single week unless there is a reason which means that I cannot do so, which I will let you know. I will always set up the live chat a day or so in advance. Also, I am trialing something at the moment. I am making my videos, my regular news update videos, members only. So there's two tiers of channel membership. And there's Royal Household, which gives you access to all of the emojis and icons and things. And then there is Nobility, the Nobility tier. So you get, if you are a member of the Nobility tier, you will get access to the videos at least 24 hours in advance of everyone else before it goes public. So today I have a video about Prince Harry, which is members only. It will go public eventually, but if you want early access, then that is available for you. So thank you so much for attending today's chat. I will see you next time. And of course, I will see you over the coming week in all the different videos. So thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media. And of course, do hit that bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. And remember, we are doing the Lord's work. Mwah to you all, and goodbye.